Now, it is a huge thrill here on the Southern Star podcast to be joined by one of Cork Camogie and the Camogie Associations, and she won't like me for saying it, but a legend of the game, 9-time All-Ireland senior winner, 11-time All-Star, and on top of all of that, in the middle of everything that she achieved on the pitch, a soldier in the Irish Army. She also has a new book out that's out this Christmas. It's published by Hero Books, and I'm 3/4 of the way through it, and I can already recommend it heartily because it is a really honest and a brilliant read. It's called Why Not a Warrior? It's an association with the 42.IEs, written by with Sinead Farrell. But it's all about Gemma O'Connor. And Gemma, you're very welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good, Ger. It's all good. It's quite busy. It's been a hectic few weeks, but yeah, it's all positive. It's good. It's great.
It is indeed. Congratulations on the book. As I said, I'm nearly towards the end of it, and it's a page turner. It's just brilliantly put together. It's about your sporting career, your personal life, your time in the army. So much to get through. We won't be able to touch on all of it today, but a simple question to start. Why did you decide, along with Sinead, to put your story in a book? Because it's a big step and it's not an easy thing to do, but why did you decide to do that from day one?
Yeah, look, I was quite reluctant to do it from day one. When I was approached to it, I never thought I'd be approached to do a book. I know I've spent a long time in the red jersey, and I suppose people might be fascinated from that point of view. But it's not just about camogie. It's about everything. It's about life in general. It's about my career on and off the pitch. So life in the red jersey, touches on my club. It touches on my career in the Defence Forces. It showcases that. It's about the hardships on and off the field. Whether it's about bereavement and sadness and grief and heartache, and it goes on about sexuality. And I suppose the reason I did that really was, I suppose I saw it as an opportunity to put camogie up on the platform to put a book out there, and I suppose the first thing about it is that it's a book about camogie, but it's not about just camogie. It's about the player and what's behind the player. And I suppose I saw it as an opportunity to do it to help maybe one or two people out there that might be struggling with their identity or the sexuality, or that are going through hardships in life like grief or bereavement and things like that. Or so that's what the book is about. It's kind of like a 360 view on my life. And it's look, it was quite daunting to be personal about some things, but it would have been easy just to kind of fade into the background and say no to these things. But I suppose I kind of did it from a point of view just to kind of showcase camogie and maybe just to kind of help one or two people out there.
Yeah, I think your honesty shines through on every page, and it's a credit to you and a credit to Sinead the way you've managed to put it. And there's a lot of young boys and girls, if they read this book, will benefit from it, not just from a sporting perspective, but from the honesty of somebody that's willing to bare their soul, which I always say to people when they're writing books. I know all about that from writing other similar books. It's a big step, Gemma, and like, I'm delighted you did it because you've got a unique story. And we don't have time to cover your entire career in the army, but the fact that you were so willing to talk openly about it. Can I ask you, once you'd gone through the process and the book was on the way, were you nervous? And what was it like when you finally got your hands on that book? And like, the reaction has been overwhelmingly positive so far, as I said. But from your own personal point of view, I mean, you must have been nervous picking up the book and going, okay, here we go.
Oh yeah, for definite, like for sure. I was definitely 100% nervous. Like, it is quite daunting, and I won't lie, there was a few times that I was there thinking to myself, especially when I was overseas, and we were doing a lot of Zooms with Sinead, and when in order to put pen to paper and stuff, and some things mightn't be in the book or whatever, but you have to kind of, like, I suppose, be really truthful and honest, and you're kind of reflecting a lot on your life, like, and sometimes they're hard to talk about them or speak about them. And I suppose there was times there where I felt like, oh, maybe I want to pull out of this, I'm not quite sure about putting pen to paper on such things that are personal and that are, I suppose, that are dear to me. But yeah, look, I'm delighted that it's done now, and then finally going through the edits and all that, and then getting to physically hold the book. It was quite nerve-wracking, to be honest.
I know the feeling, and I'm delighted you did it, though. I'm delighted you did it.
You're not sure really what to expect, like.
Yeah.
a run-of-the-mill person like anybody else. I'm not some type of, A-listers Hollywood celebrity that's there trying to make millions out of something. We play an amateur sport. We go through the hardships and the ups and downs of life like everybody else. And I suppose it's just showcasing in the book that like life is hard and it's also great, and it's like, it's the same for a lot of people, behind closed doors. It's not just about being on the pitch, it's about everything else outside of that.
Yeah, I always marvel when I talk to people like yourself, sports people like yourself, and Rena Buckley and Valerie Mulcahy. I'd have you up there on that pantheon alongside those players as well. How humble you are about the whole thing, because I say 9 All-Irelands, I say 11 All-Stars. It's almost like flippant to say it. It's like a number. But to achieve that level of success, you have to be unbelievably dedicated. You have to be unbelievably, your private life and your personal life has to be put on hold, as you know. But you also, for you and the people that I mentioned there, to be so humble about it. And that's another thing that shines through from the book. You're not shouting from the rooftops, look what I've won. You're actually talking to the person that's reading the book and saying, these are the hardships and the highs, and you had plenty lows too, as you outline in the book, to get to the promised land of winning an All-Ireland. And then when you win an All-Ireland, that's not enough. I want to win it again. So I see the humbleness in you, but I also see the warrior, and it's a great title for the book, because you have to be a warrior to be in the army, but you also have to be a warrior if you're a Cork senior camogie player, because you came up against some of the best players of your generation to win those All-Irelands. Is there a game that sticks out? Is there a moment from all that career that you can think of, that comes to you quickly? Mightn't have been an All-Ireland final winning game, but a moment when you kind of said, that's the one that that comes to my mind. That's the one that I go back to a lot.
I suppose there's a lot of games that kind of stand out, and then there's a lot of years that kind of go into one. And I suppose you can talk about a few All-Irelands that stand out. Like I remember, was it 2016, which ended up being a disaster of a year. And for us, All-Ireland wise, we lost. I got sent off. I think that was the year that we played Wexford in a repeat. And like those games were so intense, like they were like non-stop, end pitch stuff. And anybody that follows camogie and knows Wexford camogie, they're a massive goal scoring team, and they're like, it's just, playing that centre back, trying to keep them out, and to finally pick those games in the end. It's things like that you just love. Like, that's why you just love playing it. It's hard. It's just tenacious from start to finish. You're absolutely exhausted, but like, obviously when you're on the winning side at the end, it's completely worth it. I suppose when you lose those games, then you're kind of questioning everything. But there's fine margins. And I suppose in camogie, there's such a small group that are able to play at that level, and there's literally, I suppose, when you're talking about the semi-final stages and the other arm final stages, you're talking about 2 or 3 points between each team, and there's nothing really between those teams. So that's why when you win them, they're very sweet to win.
Something I picked up on as well from the book, when you're in the army, and I've no idea, but when you're in the army, the bond you form with the people standing next to you, men and women, in very dangerous situations where you might be shot at or you might be blown up. It's not flippant to say that. You develop a deep bond, I think, that most normal Joe Soaps like myself don't understand. You hear it, and you hear people in the army talking about it. Those bonds that you formed in the army, the bonds you formed in the dressing room, are the things you talk about, and the people you met, and the players that you loved playing alongside, and then the warriors that you were up against, the likes of Ursula Jacobs and all those great players. The bond in the dressing room was as important as any All-Ireland medal to you, I would imagine. And how much of the bond that you formed in the army helped you, and did it go both ways?
Yeah, like without a bond or a sense of camaraderie or whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be this massive friendship where like you have to be best friends with everybody in the team. But I think it's really and truly important to have respect for each other. Like and when you're going to playing, it's about playing for the person next to you, in front of you, behind you, and all that, and having that respect for that person. And forming those bonds are, without them, really, like you're not really going to be successful. Human talent will only bring you so far. Like, so they're completely important, and you're putting your trust in that person. You're putting your trust in that person to do the right thing on when you go training, when you finish training. So particularly have a good diet, not to go out on social occasions when the night before games or things like that. To look after yourself and to have the right attitude. And it's the very same in the defence forces. Like, we do nothing without each other, and there's no such thing as doing anything really particularly by yourself. Yeah, you might have your own individual jobs, but you're working along somebody. There's a team around you 24/7, and it's the same when we go overseas. We farm up. It's a thing. It's called a farm up phase, and you farm up a couple of months, 2 or 3 months before you deploy overseas, and you might be with people that you've trained with or that you work with, and the majority of people you've never even seen or met before. So that farm up phase is an opportunity for everybody to get to know each other. And when you meet somebody at the start, you might say, "Oh, I'm going to be spending 6 months with these people. I don't even know them." But over the course of those weeks before you're deployed, you form excellent friendships, or as you said, a bond with people. So then when you're deployed overseas, you've trained together, now you're living together or rooming together, or you're in the same camp together, or whatever the case may be. And that's what it's all about. It's all about teamwork, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I can see that. I can see the soldier in you talking there and the player at the same time. That's what makes the book beautifully unique, in that you have that background and you've been able to tap into both. There's too many people in the book to touch upon now who are influences on your career, but one I want to talk about is Paddy Murray, because somebody I have a huge amount of respect for. And one of the things I love about the book are the interactions between you and the players, and the kind of the shouting and the roaring at each other, which is purely natural. It happens. It's beautifully put. If nothing else, I would recommend it to buy the book for those. Talk to me about Paddy, when Paddy came in as manager, briefly about what he did and how he did it to make Cork, what they were.
Yeah, it was very exciting when we kind of found out about Paddy coming on board. I think Cork at the time needed a kind of a jump in terms of how would you say, professionalism, if you want to call that, a different approach. We needed that jump. We needed somebody to take the reins and kind of grab Cork camogie by the scruff of the neck and kind of give us that extra lift like we needed to get to the next level. So when Paddy came in, he changed the face of Cork camogie. I think for that period in time, he's extremely professional. He's a certain set of standards. I always say he's a very controversial character. Not everyone likes him. He knows that too, and he's no problem about knowing that or whatever. But I think the one thing that you can't fault Paddy for is his effort to Cork camogie and what he's put in for the last few years. It's second to none, and we're very grateful for that. Like, without that, we wouldn't have won the All-Irelands that we've won with him. So he's we've a unique relationship. I always say we've massive respect for each other, but we've no bother giving out to each other either, like telling each other as it is. So, but there's a fine line there. When I'm with Paddy, he's the manager, and that's his call. Me as a player, and I firmly believe as a player, you have a right to speak. Obviously, you say it in a kind of a respectful way and things like that. But you kind of it has to be a two-way relationship, and not be afraid to put the hand up and say, look, maybe I don't agree with that, or why is this happening? But at the end of the day, it's their call, and I think you just have to respect that.
Yeah, that's clear, well put again. And with somebody like Paddy, from interviewing him down through the years, I know exactly what you're talking about, and it is a two-way thing when it comes to respect. But yeah, I think he came along at just about the right time for you and that particular group of players as well. And it worked out well from that point. One person I did want to talk to you about briefly, because I mentioned influences, and I know it might be an emotional subject for you, is your mother.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Because I mean, everybody loves their mother, and everybody, she was clearly a huge influence on you, to put it mildly, Gemma. But not just her influence, but just, I think, her presence in your head, if I make sense. I get the impression you were on the pitch, and maybe you were in situations, maybe in the army, where you were kind of going, you could hear your mother talking to you, because I know myself what that like. Am I right there? And how much of a character was she?
Like, even I went overseas just recently, came back in May. It was my first overseas trip since 2013, so there was a big gap there, mainly because my mother passed away, my mom passed away, and I suppose I had different priorities. I was playing camogie, I was doing courses at home, and I was mandatory selected then to go overseas. But like, what, even overseas, it was like last time I was here in 2013. There used to be this kind of phone box thing. It's no longer there because everyone has Wi-Fi, in the rooms and things like that. But like, it's like, I remember making phone calls, on a regular basis to my mom for the chats and, seeing how things are going up. So like her influence is still there and is still present, because that's what I used to be thinking about when I was overseas and things like that. And you never stop thinking about them, anybody that loses anybody will know that you never stop thinking about them. But in terms of my career and everything, yeah, since I was 7 years of age, Helder Hurley, she's been, I suppose, the catalyst really for it all. But she's been a massive influence, and kind of taught me everything, and kind of showed me what motivation and drive and passion. I was lucky enough that I had that in me, but she also had it in her. So it's something that, I got from her. But yeah, she was a character on and off the line, super passionate, a Glen woman at birth, if you want to call it. And then obviously, when we started playing camogie and my brother started playing her in football, she soon transferred over to the Bars because our kids were playing there, and became a very loyal Bars supporter. But yeah, it's kind of she was a character, yeah, a character in so many ways. She was involved in the school teams and the Bars underage teams, involved in senior team with me, went to obviously all my Cork games and things like that. So yeah, look, life is hard and it's sad. Those people are no longer around, the people that you rely on before in every game, after a game, you might say, oh, how did I do? And she'd be like, you're not moving quite so well there. No, it should only be a 1 or 2 liner, but it'd be like a right punch in the stomach to hear from her, because she'd tell it as it is, or she'd say, oh, geez, we had a great game today, girl, and that would be it, like, you know what I mean? It'd be, so yeah, look, these people, when you have people like that in your life, I class myself as very lucky, extremely lucky. But it's just, it's very unfortunate that I had to lose her, I suppose, when she was only 55 years of age when she passed away. So
Too young, but
yeah.
beautifully put. Finally, before I let you go, I wanted to get your opinion on, like, Cork under Matthew Toomey have come so close at senior level over the last couple of years. One player, when I look out in that pitch of a really talented panel that I see a lot of the Gemma O'Connor when she was in the backs, is our own Libby Coppinger from down in St. Colum's Club here in West Cork. I know you see as much as you can see of the Cork senior setup, but your impression of Libby as a Cork senior and how she's developed her game, started out as a forward, certainly in the football in the dual sense, and moved into the backs, not dissimilar to yourself in your own career, and how important she is to the Cork setup, and what you hope for Cork for next year.
Yeah, from the moment I met Libby, I was like really impressed by her. I think any young person just needs to look at Libby and needs to meet Libby. She's extremely honest, very hardworking, one of the most hardworking players I've ever came across. She's a little ball of muscle. That's the way I describe her. She's tough as nails, and she's a super back. You'll get nothing easy off her. And you need to be that. You need to have those kind of little characteristics as a back. You need to be honest, because if you're not honest playing, then you're going to get absolutely creased. She leaves no stone unturned. And she just has a super attitude, her approach to training and to games. And, even just like any of the other dual players, like Hannah Looney and stuff like that, I used to say to her, geez, I don't know how you're doing it. You must be exhausted. But, she'd travel up from Kill. She'd be traveling up in the morning. We used to train at 8 o'clock Saturday and Sunday mornings, 8 o'clock start. And depending if she wasn't in Cork City, staying, she'd be down, helping out in the farm down below, and she'd be up asleep in her car, getting a couple of minutes kipping before training, and there wouldn't be a complaint, there wouldn't be a whinge or a cry. It would be straight on the pitch. And you have to take your hat off to people like that. And she's a super girl, and she's a big player for Cork Camogie.
Excellent, and very honestly put, much like in your book, just out in all good bookstores at the moment and available on Amazon.com. It's the Why Not a Warrior, the Gemma O'Connor story, published by Hero Books, with the brilliant Sinead Farrell from the 42.ie detailing the life and times on and off the pitch and in the army of the fantastic Gemma O'Connor. Gemma, we've only scratched the surface on what is a terrific book. We don't have really the time to
Thanks,
go any
Ger.
further on it. Delighted for you. Delighted you did the book. I'm
Brilliant,
delighted you
appreciate
were,
it.
and I'm delighted you're so honest in the book. And when I push a book and tell people I like a book, I actually read the book and make sure. If I don't like a book, I'll tell you that too. I love this. I absolutely love this. And I think any young boy or any young girl, whether they're into sport or not, there's a lot
Yeah,
in there that
perfect.
will help them. And I think just a final word to yourself, that'd be the message you'd be giving. You don't have to be a sports person to appreciate this, because your army background, your family, your personal life, and just as well as the camogie, it's all intertwined. But there's a lot in here for people to take from it.
Yeah, that's the main message I think I wanted to get across. It's, you know, it's for everybody, as you said, like, you know, the non-sporting people, the non-highly academic people, you know, everything, like all the struggles in life. It's like, you know, it's you know, it's for everybody, and it touches on everything. You know, it touches on school, work, sport, and personal life. So I hope people get something out of it, and that's the reason why I kind of did it. I did it for those reasons, just to kind of help a few people that may be struggling, and obviously then to tell my story as a Cork camogie player and put camogie out there. So yeah, so I hope it goes well.
Yes, so do I. I think it is going to go very, very well, and congratulations on it, and well done.
Yeah.
Once again, in all good bookstores and Amazon.com, here, published by Hero Books, the Gemma O'Connor story, Why Not a Warrior? Go get it for this Christmas. And Gemma, to you, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us here on the Southern Star podcast, and continued success in wherever the career takes you from here on in.
Yeah. Thank you, Ger. Appreciate it. Thank you.